All right, welcome to another episode of the Coffee Break Podcast, where we share business ideas, practices, and strategies. I'm Chad Lingefelt with Loc-Doc Security, and today we're sharing a coffee break with Blair Primis from OrthoCarolina, and it's going to be a fun conversation. I can already tell because we've been chatting nonstop since he walked in the door about a half hour ago, so we'll be chatting with him right after this.
We got so much to say, we got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes, and it's time for a coffee break. It's time for a coffee break. Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you for being here today, Blair. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. I just kind of going back a little bit. I remember, I think the first time that I ever saw you, you were giving a presentation at Shookum Tech Talks or something.
Skookum.
Snookum.
Yep.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah,
Okay.
Skookum, yeah.
I really screwed that one up.
That's
there.
okay. That's okay. That's all right.
That makes sense why I was having trouble searching it. But that was...
yeah. Yeah,
that was
Skookum, Uptown.
A couple of years ago.
Yeah, it must have been 2 or 3 years ago, probably.
Yeah, and you were talking about some of the marketing strategies that you guys were doing. It was very insightful, and it was ever since then. It's like you have been. I've seen you all over the place, and we just seen our paths seem to cross. So, a couple of weeks ago, I was over at a Huga talk. I know how to pronounce that one. Over at a Huga talk, and you were talking about leadership, and I was like, man, this guy spans a great, vast of information. So it'll be a great conversation to talk about. So your role is Senior Vice President of
Marketing and Talent Management at OrthoCarolina. So basically, I manage marketing, human resources. And what's really cool is we have a culture department at OrthoCarolina as well. So I have a director of culture, a couple folks on my team there that focus on our internal culture.
That's
which is awesome.
That would be a fun thing to chat about, too.
Absolutely. Be happy to. Yeah, we can go through it.
So to get started, we have a recurring segment on the show called Rapid Fire.
Yep.
All right. So here we go. 5 random questions, and I pulled some new ones out.
Okay.
So here we go. If you could only eat at one restaurant forever, what restaurant would it be?
Al Mike's.
Al Mike's.
Alexander Michaels Uptown.
Yes.
It's my jam.
That's a good choice.
Yeah. I'm like 3 blocks away. It's like my version of Cheers. No joke. Like my kids and I, we walk in, we don't order. They just bring me a hop, drop, and roll. My son knows his drink shows up. We get the same dishes. We know the servers, bartender. No joke. It's literally like Cheers for us. We love it there.
So
I love it.
Short, quick story.
It's great.
For years, we as a company, we went to the same restaurant almost every day for lunch.
Right.
And for months, I ordered the same exact meal every day for lunch, just in an effort to come in so I could say, I'll have the usual.
Yeah. Right.
And then I was
and then when they never
I'm
get
sick
it.
of this.
Right. Or they change. It's funny. We go in now. This is going to sound so like bougie or whatever. We go in now and my son or my daughter will be like, oh, they hired someone new. It's almost like they didn't ask us permission to hire that person because it's our place. It was our place. How dare you do that?
I don't know if I can agree with this. All right. That's a good choice, by the way. If you've never checked out
Alexander Michaels. Yeah, Al Mike's Uptown.
All right. Number 2, what is the best gift anyone has ever given you?
Wow, great question. Gosh, wow, I'm stumped. Best gift I've ever been given. I could go with my kids, but that's kind of a cop out. They're great and all, but best gift everyone's ever given me. My gosh, I really don't know what that would be. I'm struggling on this one.
The Al Michaels just rolled off your tip
of your
tongue.
Tip of my tongue. Best gift I've ever been given. I don't know. I got a really cool pair of socks recently. I'm a big sock guy.
Okay.
I know that sounds crazy, but meaningful gifts for somebody that you know will like it is cool because there's intentionality there.
Somebody paid attention to the fact that you like socks.
Exactly right.
We'll go with that.
Yep.
That's good.
Yep.
All right, number 3. If you could eliminate one thing from your daily routine, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's great. So I don't sleep all that much. So I take melatonin at night. I'd love to not have to take it. I know it's natural and all that kind of stuff, but I'd rather not have to take it. I know it sounds weird, but I've thought about this.
Yeah.
I've thought about this question. And so I'm like, if I could not have to take it to go to bed, that would be awesome.
So you could just fall asleep.
Yeah, if I could just fall asleep.
Yeah.
But I can't. I got too much rattling around or I don't know what's going on up there, but I'm not a big sleeper, which sucks because everything I read that's like the number one thing that gets you early.
Yeah.
Is you don't sleep enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
All right. Number 4. What is the last place that you would be caught dead?
Dancing anywhere.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with the activity. Location agnostic.
Yeah.
Just dancing is most likely not going to be happening.
Yeah. I will go with you on that. All right. And then the last one. If you had 1 extra hour in your day that you could do anything with, what would you choose?
So going back to my other answer, I'd probably say sleep, number 1. But I think it would be reflecting on what I've done in the day.
So
in that particular time. Reflection time.
Yeah.
A little more, having a commute sometimes, we were just joking before about sometimes how difficult it is with traffic around Charlotte. But one of the benefits of that, I think one of the things that is kind of a gift is that you actually get the chance to reflect. You can listen to podcasts, you can listen to stuff, you can think about your day, maybe frustrating at times. When you have a quick little short commute home to work, you don't always have that.
Sure.
And so I think sometimes, you go on to the next thing, right? I get home, my kids are there, or I'm doing something with my girlfriend, or we're doing something.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult sometimes to think about, what have I done today?
Yeah.
Right? You go from one meeting to the next meeting to the next meeting with 10 minutes in between, and you're not actually reflecting.
Yeah.
So I think hands down, it would be an hour to reflect on what's gone on that day, how have I acted, how have I behaved with folks, what would I change, what should I do more of?
Yeah.
All that kind of
now,
stuff.
It's funny. We have this conversation a lot around here because on my drive home, I'm zoned out. Like literally, I could be in the slow lane behind an 18-wheeler. I have no idea.
Doesn't know.
I'm just on the path home, and that is a time that you can just really kind of reflect.
It's great.
And everybody else is like, I got to get through this traffic. I got to get through this traffic.
Right. It's great.
It's fun to be able to take a little bit of that time. Okay, cool. So you passed. That was
Thank
5
you.
questions.
Yeah, the gift thing, I'm going to have to go. I'll reflect on the gift thing.
Yeah.
And I'll shoot you a note and let you know what the real answer is.
Socks.
Right now it's socks. I'm sticking with it.
All right, cool. So to kind of get into the conversation and the reason why I wanted to kind of have you on the podcast to chat. And again, our mission here is to talk about business ideas, practices, and strategies, and what I've seen you exhibit in everything that you've been touching from as far as I've been aware of what you've been doing has been solely dedicated around that. How can you as an individual add value to other businesses and continue to bring awareness to what it is that you're working on? And so I think that's a really cool thing, and I want to understand more of kind of the reason behind it, how you're going about it, and some of the benefits or success points that you've had with it. With those 2 things I talked about earlier, I've heard you talk about marketing. That's one of the things that you're focused on, and then leadership is another big thing. So trying to understand how those 2 play with each other and some lessons that you've learned from it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great.
So let's kind of jump into it. One of the things I read on an article that you had posted was a good partner will advocate for you and your brand without you having to ask them to do so.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit more about that and how you arrived at that.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a big one for me. So one of the things that I think is important when it comes to managing a brand or managing a business or thinking about achieving a goal of some kind is, right, there's some kind of a saying like, if you want to go alone, it takes forever, but if you go with 1 million people, you can get there much quicker, kind of a thing. Sure. So I think the idea behind that is I believe in. And so wouldn't it make sense for me to align with organizations, whether it's a marketing partner, whether it's a business partner, whether it's a community partner, to be aligned with them so that if I'm helping them and they're helping me, we're both mutually moving our organizations forward? I know that sounds super simple, but it is shocking to me how oftentimes that is not the case. And the B side to that quote is that being a partner means you're not a vendor. Yeah. And vendorship is what I don't dig, because vendors, the line I like to use is they call you when the bill is due or when it's time to renegotiate the contract. Yep. And that's not what we're about. We drop vendors, but we keep partners. Yeah. And so if there's an opportunity for me to go to somebody and say, hey, listen, we're going to create some custom content, we're going to do some really cool marketing areas, or we're going to bring you out to our 10K, or we're going to talk to you about an event that we're putting on, or how can you help us leverage something in some way? We do want to get fully integrated and cross over with your social media program and your social media strategy. If you do all of those things, then sure, go ahead and give me a sideline banner. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to give me the side of a truck? Yeah, sure, I'll take that too.
Yeah.
It used to be, what are the spots and dots? How many impressions can I get? We've completely flipped it. How do we get integrated first? Then give me the impressions second.
Well, where did that idea come from, though? I mean, obviously you said you flipped it over on its head. Where did that idea, that thought process come from?
Yeah, great question. So I actually think about marketing a bit maybe differently than others do. I don't know. There might be some others out there, but I don't think of marketing as strictly a component of advertising or PR or those things. Those are the components that make it up. Mm-hmm. But the reality is it's business development.
Yeah.
Marketing should be business development. You should go out there and find ways to get connected into the community, because if you do that, you by default become more relevant in their world.
Yeah.
So let's go back to our earlier conversation. Nobody wakes up in the morning. Nobody woke up this morning who feels good and is like, let me see what's going on in the news. Let me check out my Google homepage. I wonder what's going on in orthopedics today. Yeah, Let me just check out OrthoCarolina.com and see what's. No one does that. So since they don't, I need to be relevant in their world some way. So if I had an article that got into their news feed around, why yoga is good for your lower back, or talking about what proper shoes you should wear, or that we're supporting a community walk effort in Fremont West, or that we're a part of this, or that we have physicians doing a seminar around joint replacement, it becomes much more appropriate for us to be part of their world than making them be part of ours. So if we believe that, and we go out and we find business partners that we can do that with, why wouldn't I get involved in community partnerships? Why wouldn't I help a local business with a program that no one has ever bought their program before? We'll buy it and we'll help you.
Yeah.
Why not hang out in the creative community?
Yeah.
Why not figure out ways to get part of the business community in some way, real estate or construction? Why not be a part of those things? If more people are moving here every day, which they are, than are leaving, shouldn't it be our job to make that number grow, and hopefully the ones that move here stay here?
Yeah.
That's what marketing should do.
Sure.
Talking about OrthoCarolina is really secondary.
Yeah.
Our goal should be to make this a really cool place where you want to live, work, and play. And if we do that, how can that be bad for our business?
So
how can it really be bad for anybody's business?
Yeah.
So really, shouldn't every company have that goal?
If I understand what you're saying correctly, essentially what you're saying is, rather than constantly going around talking about OrthoCarolina,
right?
OrthoCarolina is using its marketing prowess, its dollars to promote other things.
You got it.
That are relevant to the community, but by backing it with their dollars and tagging essentially your logo to it or whatever.
Or somehow integrate with content, or we get some kind of benefit out of it. We get an asset back.
Yeah.
And you nailed it. So the way we simplify that, we whittle that down to something very simple, is that we've created I guess you call it a tagline that we use, which is like, this event is powered by OrthoCarolina. So we use powered by everywhere. Yeah. The idea being that it's not our idea, it's not our program. We're just making it possible.
Yeah.
The community's going to benefit from it. How can that be bad for our business?
Yeah.
Can I actually point on, that billboard got me a patient a month from now? Impossible. Yeah. Now, hopefully with some technology implementations we have around scheduling, we can actually follow people through a funnel. But the reality is, I don't know that and won't know that. A touch point today for you woke up with a slight tweak in your knee. You and I sat down and had this conversation. A year from now, you may think of OrthoCarolina, but you might be like, I talked with Blair one time, and it was a year ago.
Yeah.
And so it'd be difficult for me to say with any degree of accuracy, like most marketers, right? Because I ran that bus ad, we got, I sold 6 more microphones. Like, come on, like, give me a break.
So I remember now, I've used this multiple times talking to a lot of people, and I never gave you credit for it because I didn't remember where I heard it from.
Oh wow, cool.
But you just reminded me about it. When you were giving that talk the first time I heard you. You mentioned the fact that you had done, maybe it was you, but somebody that you knew of had done a survey on where did you see this ad placed.
Oh yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, because that was mind blowing, and I've used that example because
huge.
I get the question asked 100 times a month. Does social media marketing, what's your ROI for social media marketing for your business? Tell us about this.
Yeah, it's great. So OrthoCarolina, for those that don't know, we're a privately owned orthopedics practice owned by the physicians that work there. And oftentimes, we report through committees and structure, and it's their company, and we have to let them know what's happening. And way back in the day when I first started at OrthoCarolina, we had a marketing committee, and one of the things the physicians would always ask is, to your point exactly, how do we know the dollars that we're spending in the channels are giving us the best results we can for the channel that we're in?
Yeah.
And having just told you all that I did, the verbal diarrhea I just gave you about my business development idea behind marketing, is you really can't track it. There's something about this cauldron that we throw ideas into that when we spin this giant spoon around, what wafts out is marketing strategy.
Yeah.
So knowing that, we actually did a survey of patients and asked them, I think it was maybe 300 or 400 patients way back. God, this must have been 6-7 years ago. 300 or 400 patients. We had a private online forum we could use through a company called Vision Critical. And we asked them, when is the last time you heard or saw an OrthoCarolina advertising communication of some kind? And the number of answers that came up in channels we do not market or advertise in floored me. Yeah. At the time, Charlotte Magazine, we didn't have an ad in Charlotte Magazine. I heard you guys on the radio on this station. We're not on that station. And so it got me thinking, like, they don't know where they heard it. Yeah. So the reality is we just need to be in the areas that covers as much as possible. So to pinpoint one or two, I think is really difficult to do it. So therein lies, they don't know where they saw it. They just know that they did. And isn't that all that really matters?
Yeah. Which, again, is something else that I should probably give you credit for that I am now processing where I heard it from. I just borrowed information.
No, it's good, man. Do it. Do it.
One of the things that we changed a couple of years ago, because we were doing a lot of content creation, we were trying to produce a lot of information, and I was trying to figure out who our focus group is, who our ideal customer is, so that we can get that information to them. And it stuck out to me, you have to go where they are. And that's essentially what you have done is, hey, this is our customer base, and these are the people that we want to connect with. So rather than trying to draw them over to us, we're going to go and hang out where they are.
Precisely.
And be a part of their communities. Yep. And we've done that through a couple of our industry networks that we have become a part of for some of our customer base. Cool. And that's where it kind of came from. It was like, the thought process, I can spend all this time over here making a lot of noise trying to attract attention, or we can just go where people already are. And get in connection with them. And
get in there, yeah. And I think that's how I would answer or address when people say to you, like, what's the return on investment for Instagram or Twitter or, a YouTube video of some kind or Facebook? The answer is it's putting our brand in the channels where the people exist.
Sure.
That's why it's relevant. Can we be better at it? Of course we could. Could we do more in those spaces? Absolutely. But the reality is you have to be there because that's where the people are. Yeah. Now, the caveat to that is don't go in there unless you know what you're talking about because otherwise you're just lost.
Sure.
Now it's just a waste of time. Get in there with intentionality. Get in there with a strategy. But if you're going to be in there, be in the channels and in the places in the language and the style that they want to be spoken to. Yeah. You can't change Facebook. Yeah. You can't change Instagram. You can't say, well, here's what we're about. So people from Instagram have to understand that. No. That's not why they go to Instagram. They go there for something else. They can either scroll past or swipe past or view past you in a certain way. You've got to be relevant to them in that channel for how they come to the channel. Because, like I said, they have no interest in OrthoCarolina at that point. Yeah. So how do we get relevant to them in that channel?
So we've talked here for the last 10 or 15 minutes about marketing and kind of your strategy behind that, which is I totally agree with. That's an interesting topic and conversation. We can go on and on for that. Yeah. I want to switch gears over to your leadership type conversation because, as you mentioned, you're leading multiple groups of people. And a couple of things that I found interesting when I heard your talk last time, one of the things that you brought up was a philosophy that you have of recognize, reward, recruit, and report. Yep. And you tagged that with track how we work and track how we behave. Yeah. So these are some of the things that you're focused on from a leadership perspective. Talk to us a little bit about how that has been impactful and maybe some of the ideas that you've been able to implement around that for results.
Oh, awesome. I love it. So one of the things that I think is important, and I know you've chatted with other folks, other guests before about this, is leading an organization through change is very, very difficult. And what is difficult about it, in my mind, isn't the actual thing that's changing. It's behaving like you said you were going to.
Yeah.
You have different generations, different histories, different pedigrees, different upbringing, different skill set, different mindset. How do you take 20, 50, 1,000 people and all say to them, we made a pledge or we agreed that we would start to behave this way, and you're not.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to do that. People have spent 25 years in a career doing something a certain way, and you're going to say, hey, that meeting we just had, you know, the email you sent afterward, that's not the behavior we're looking for. Yeah. So that's the journey we're on now. How do we get people to behave in a way that is conducive to creating organizational change? So from that, one of the things that we try to implement, at least with my teams, is I am less likely to recognize my team for an amazing result of a digital marketing campaign, or the fact that we put together a document around our benefits plan really seamlessly, or that we have instituted a new onboarding or orientation, the actual program itself. I will recognize them for good work done, but what I'm more likely to share, report, and recognize on and socialize to the organization is how they went about getting it done. Is how they behaved while it was happening. Hey, the how you handled yourself in that meeting was more impressive than the content of the meeting.
Yeah.
How you behaved in front of that group of people and the words you used, I loved that more than actually what you talked about.
Sure.
Or the results you got from that effort, while wonderful, it's actually better how you role modeled how the project was done.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by recognize, report, reward, because you can actually highlight people's behaviors as what you want to be role modeled in your organization. And if people see that that's the behavior that's getting recognition from a senior leader, then they'll want to do that too.
Yeah.
And that's my effort around changing behavior.
Yeah.
We want to all do good work. We want great results. My belief is that if people start to behave in ways that help one another and behave in ways that our culture we've agreed upon our culture should stand for, then how can we not get great results?
Yeah.
We'll get the people that can get the work done.
It's interesting. I was listening to a podcast on the Entree Leadership Program. Chris Hogan, who's a big proponent of recognition, and it said almost the exact same thing. Whatever you recognize is what is going to get repeated.
Yep.
And you have to be very intentional about what you're recognizing, because you recognize the wrong things, you get the wrong things repeated.
Right.
But you don't have. But I think what happens with a lot of business leaders is maybe there's a fear of what I do want to recognize, because I don't necessarily know quite yet what I want to be repeated.
What it is, right?
And then they don't do any recognition.
Yep.
And that's a whole nother issue that you run into.
You're right.
Because you're just basically you're not recognizing anybody by fear that you're going to highlight the wrong things.
You got it.
So going back to that from a culture standpoint, from an understanding of core values, from whatever your mission is, understanding what's important to the organization, what's important, those behaviors that you want to, that's going to be starting point number one.
Yep.
And then the act of recognizing it is step number two.
Exactly right. We were fortunate. So I have as I mentioned before, I have a director of culture, or director of human resources as part of my team. And myself and the two of them were lucky enough to get to present to a group of our leadership physicians for almost an hour a couple of weeks ago, around 1 year later of a culture initiative that we started, and we kind of reported out. And instead of starting with metrics, we started with a conversation, and we asked the senior physician leadership, how do you think culture is going?
Yeah.
Before I show you any slides or any data points around how we've improved turnover, or how our employee engagement has improved, or what people think when our new employees surveys, when they come to orientation, our scores are through the roof. We'll show you some amazing data. But before I do, how do you think it's going? Use words.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think. And we had a really awesome conversation around physicians spend all of their time learning how to become a physician, specifically orthopedic surgery, right? Medical school, college, medical school, residency, which is long, fellowship. Then you finally get a chance to work. No one's told you about what it's like to manage 15 people. Nobody's told you how to think about investment strategies. Nobody's told you what it's like to behave as a leader or behave in a certain way. Yeah. You just know how to be a surgeon. Yep. So how can we, as your team, your support staff, your structure, fill the gap for you in terms of those leadership moments, those motivational moments? How do we become the support structure to manage the rest of your organization so you can focus on what you've been expertly trained in?
Yeah.
Very healthy dialogue. And I think coming out of that, it gave us a lot of excitement to know that the physician leadership is open to it.
Yeah.
Because now it gives us, we're empowered to now go back to the group and say, here's why we need to move the organization forward in this way. It's really important that we do.
Yeah.
And I tell you that whole little story to validate the idea that if we don't recognize how people behave in certain ways, and we don't think about how they can be a role model in their organization, whatever size it is. You could be an entry-level employee and have role model behavior. You don't have to be the CEO. You don't have to be the senior vice president or whatever. You can be any level and role model behavior. And if you do that and you recognize it, then all of a sudden you'll realize you don't act that way.
Yeah.
And you become the outsider.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, you're not somebody that ever gets recognized.
Sure, yeah. So you, for what you're describing, I'm going to make a vast assumption that you've heard of the leader versus leader-follower mentality.
Yeah, absolutely.
I without making either further assumptions, tell us about how which way you're kind of implementing that in your organization and what that's looking like.
Yeah, great question. So almost full hardcore leader idea. So let me back up a minute. Yeah. I'm also a hardcore accountability manager. So I think there's a very strong difference between managers and leaders. Yep. Very, very strong difference. And so from a manager perspective, I'm an accountability manager. Here's the project on the work list. Here's the thing we just talked about getting done. I'm not really going to be involved in it anymore unless you need me to be or you have a question or two. The assumption will be you will get it accomplished, whether it's being done around a cup of coffee, whether it's going to get done on your kitchen table at home or in the office or whatever, you're going to get it done. Now, knowing that, I can spend more time figuring out ways to remove obstacles for you to get that project done. How can I help you navigate a complex system?
Yeah.
How can I help you make connections in a community in a different way? How can I let you fail or struggle and learn from it, guide and teach you in a way to learn from it so that next time you don't need me to teach and guide you.
Yeah.
And then what I'll do is I'll recognize in front of everybody how you've grown from project 1 to project 2. That's what I do now.
Yeah.
I do less of let me go in there and mess with our marketing plan or our benefits plan. I listen to our team and I try to provide as much support I can to allow them to step up and become leaders of their own.
Yeah.
I want 1 million people just like me who are doing the things that they're doing.
Yeah.
But shouldn't the goal be that we all ascend to being awesome leaders? We will need people to do the work, of course. But the reality is if you can lead in any capacity, even if it's with a team of 1 or a team of 20, you're leading them in some achievement towards some goal.
Yeah.
You're providing, my definition of leadership is your ability to provide social influence toward the achievement of a goal.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're the smartest person, doesn't mean you have the most skills. You just are good at influencing people to get somewhere. And so if you can do that, then you're a leader.
What sparked that thought philosophy? Yes, it's more common now.
Right, it is.
In leadership models. How did you get to that point? What was had you been in an atmosphere of the reverse of that and it made you really battle against it, or were you cultured in that coming up through your career?
So it's, I think, a combination of both, really. Okay. I think when I first started working, I was fortunate to have my very first boss, my very first job ever. The guy was great. And looking back, I realized he actually was a terrific leader. At the time, he was just a cool dude to work for.
Sure.
But I didn't realize what was actually happening, right? But looking back, I'm like, wow, he really was an effective leader because he got us to do the things that as a team we needed to do. He managed people very well and led the organization by influencing us to make decisions that helped the company / that he thought was in the right direction. Yeah. So I think it's informed in both ways. I've had some knowledge and training over time. I like to tell people I've gotten my MBA through experience. Yeah. Right. I don't have an MBA, but I've gotten it through experience. 7 or 8 different types of industries I've worked in, five different companies I've worked for over my career, and all different types of leaders and bosses. And I think all of that has been a giant input into some of what I've been thinking about the last, 36 months or so around leadership. I think I've gotten to the point now where I feel like I've got my own style and take on it enough to be able to say things or stand up in front of a class and say, here's my view on leadership, or here are my ideas around what leadership means. It's all varied and it's applicable to you based on how much you're willing to take in. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think it's probably some of both. Right. I've had a situation where I'm like, wow, I don't really like working here. And I think it's because I have a crappy leader. Yeah. And then looking back, like, oh, remember that time I had a really crappy leader? Yeah. I don't want to be like that person. Sure. I'm going to try to not actively do that. Well, at the same time, somebody who's awesome to work for would be like, there's lots of things I want to steal from you and implement in my own world. Mm-hmm. So probably both.
How much of self-awareness do you think plays into your leadership style?
A ton. I think a ton. And I try to tell folks on my team that all the time. My personality, right? Whether it's a couple of my teammates in a couple of weeks, we're going to go do an Enneagram class together to like kind of learn our numbers. Yep. So how much of that personality do we learn? Myers-Briggs tests, Strength Finder, the Big Five, any of those things I think are terrific inputs to think about who you are as a person. Where do you get your energy from? How do you like to be treated? And how, as a leader, you need to treat people differently. Sure. You can't just carbon copy, treat person A and person B and person C the same. They will not react, or your ability to have social influence on them cannot be carbon copied. It must be customized. Yeah. It must be artisan. It must be craft. Yeah. Right? No different than how coffee or beer tastes somebody differently. Same way they take input and leadership differently.
Yeah. That right there is gold. Yeah. If you can wrap your head around that and apply it, I completely agree. Like, that is there's the philosophy that you have to keep everything the same for everybody because it's got to be fairness.
Well, it's also easier. Yeah. People do that because it's easier. Yeah, that's true. Like I'm a big believer. I'm a lifelong learner, and I want to learn things throughout my life. But I'm also getting older, and I do realize I'm kind of starting to get like, this is who Blair is. Yeah. Tough to change him as much as possible. So I'm at this like twixt spot where I'm like, I probably could have handled X, Y, and Z situation a little bit better, but I came over the top as hardcore Blair just then. Sure. But that's not how that person needed to hear it. So can I not do that again? That's my self-awareness. Yeah. My self-awareness is like, ooh, I didn't think about how they wanted to receive the information. I just gave it to them how I wanted to, and I need to pause. If I could get my hour back in the day, I'd pause and say, I probably should have done that differently. And I have on occasion gone to somebody and apologized. Yeah. Be like, hey, by the way, what I said in that meeting, how I acted, my bad. Wasn't you. It was me. It's not you. It's me. But really, that was me being Blair, and I should have thought more about us being a team, and I didn't then. I'm sorry. I will do my best to never make it happen again.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. It's probably more on a weekly or monthly basis for me. It's like you hear something, you react, and then you think about it 24 hours, and you come back and you're like, you know what? I completely overreacted on that.
I missed it. Yeah.
This is how this is how I needed to handle it. Yeah. But you just have to be in that mindset all the time. And I think that's one of the. To be honest with you, you're working for a larger corporation. Yeah. You've got a team. One of the things in the small business world that we live in is a lot of times you don't get that time to reflect on it, like you were talking about earlier, because you're so engulfed in doing that you just fire off and
you have to make money to be able to exist, right? I mean, you still gotta be in bit, right? Yeah. The number one goal of any business is to stay in business. Yeah, yeah. Right? I mean, that's the goal, right? So
this is one of the favorite questions I like to ask people on the podcast. Did you think that you would be at this point in your life right now?
Yeah, no, I did not. I was just listening to the thing you did with Duncan, and his answer I thought was great too. His career change is way wider than my career change, but no, I did not actually think about it this way. And I think there have been some things in my life personally, having gone through a divorce and my kids living in different places and my career changing, and I think I've had lots of multiple inputs for me to say this is now who I've become and the role I can kind of play. But what's interesting about it is, and I tell folks this, for as struggle-oriented as it is sometimes, and it sounds cliche, but it's true, I probably wouldn't change a whole lot.
Yeah.
There might be a day or two I would take back, which I'm like, wow, that was a really crappy day. I'd really love to not have to do that again. But for the most part, this is where I'm at, and I like it, and I feel good about it. And the other thing I'll say, too, which gets really interesting, and it gets on the edge here, but it's okay to be a little bit bullish about the type of person you are and what you're good at. I think there's a hesitation now to always be like, no, it's the team, it's you, I'm just a bit player. And while that's important, and don't get me wrong, I can't do anything in my organization without my team. The reality is I'm allowing them to do that because I've chosen to not be so micromanager. I'm choosing to give them the freedom to go get the work done. And that's my choice.
Yeah.
And because I've chosen that, I can take some credit for what our team has become and created.
Yeah.
It isn't cocky or arrogant. It's a little close, but I think it informs the role model that you want them to see. Yeah. Like someday you're going to be able to create a team of people that's going to kick butt and do X, Y, and Z, and it's because you've given them freedom to become those people.
Yeah.
When you micromanage and stand over them and want to know everything about what they're doing, you will by default never let them grow to the degree that they probably want to and or you were able to. So it's a challenging paradigm.
Yeah.
How do you balance being your authentic self with consciously learning how to be better at what you're doing? Difficult balance.
And self-awareness is really a big key factor of that. Our time is coming to a close, and I want to be mindful of that, but I mean, it's massively impactful. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah.
You're involved in a lot of stuff. Skill Pop?
Yes, love Skill Pop.
Tell us a little bit.
Yeah.
You're teaching classes there?
Yeah, Skill Pop is awesome. So skillpop.com, it's like a way to get, I like to say it's the opportunity to learn something between informally asking your buddy for advice at the bar and formally taking a class in college with a professor behind a lectern. It's right in between. Yeah. Cool setting, casual format, informal dialogue, but from experts and or subject matter experts in that space. And it's super fun. I love it. I've been teaching for almost 4 years now, or 3.5 years now. For as long as Skill Pop's been around, I've pretty much been there. It's great.
That's awesome.
And I teach four classes for them.
Huga Lunch and Learns, or
yep, Huga Lunch. Yeah, I've done 1 or 2 Huga Lunch and Learns, which is cool. We have my company, OrthoCarolina. We sponsor the wellness plan, the wellness and health plan, through their wellness effort. I should say it's not a plan, a wellness effort, a healthy living effort through all the Huga memberships and anybody at Huga. So we have a terrific partnership with Huga too.
And then you're involved in, or at least a sponsor of the Creativemornings show.
Yes,
which is a really cool thing. I've been to that multiples of those.
Awesome. Yes. So Charlotte is Creative is a nonprofit here in town. Matt Olin and Tim Miner manage and run that, and OrthoCarolina has been a partner of theirs from the very beginning, and the idea is to, not unlike we talked about earlier on the show, if we can support creatives, marketers, artists, photographers, whatever the case may be, to come to Charlotte and find it as a home for them because of the creative space that they can occupy, how can that be bad for OrthoCarolina? Sure. It's just a different constituency of people, and so we will support that. And so we've been a fan and a big proponent of theirs for a long time.
The last thing that I'll leave you with, our family frequents Park Road a lot, which is where one of the OrthoCarolina offices.
That's my offices. Yep.
Okay. My daughter has, every time we pass the sign, she says, "Dad, did you know that they left the N off of that sign?"
That's so good.
And the first time that she mentioned it, I was like,
wow, I never really thought about it. Right. Yeah. OrthoCarolina. Right, exactly. It makes perfect sense.
I didn't know if that was intentional or not, but it works.
It's good.
Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It was great.
For more information, you can Google your name and you're going to come up all over the place.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at bprim, BPRIM, and I'm on Instagram at BPQCB. They're not the same. It's long story why they're not the same. But those are the two best spots. You can find me on LinkedIn too. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much. If this is your first time listening or watching, man, we've got tons of episodes. I think we're closing in on 45 episodes now.
Awesome.
All kinds of great information online, just like this. Loc-Doc.net/podcast. You can subscribe. We ask you to subscribe on any of the platforms that you're listening on. Rate our podcast if you like it. If you don't, please don't rate it. But if you do, give us a good rating. It'll help others get access to this content as well. Thank you, Blair, for your time today, and we look forward to seeing you next time here on the Coffee Break Podcast. To learn more about the topics discussed today and to connect with us online to hear all of the episodes available, visit Loc-Doc.net/podcast.
We got so much to say. We got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes, and it's time for a coffee break. It's time for a coffee break. Oh, yeah.
The Coffee Break Podcast is brought to you by Loc-Doc Security. We'd love to connect with you online on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Just search LOCDOCINC.